Hey guys, welcome back to our second podcast. I hope you enjoyed the first one. We really had fun with it and decided to keep going at it.
Yeah, so today we just kind of wanted to get back on here and talk more about the book, more about the contents of the book, and just kind of some of the things that it's going to cover. And we're not going to give all the details, obviously, but just to kind of get your mind working on what it's actually going to be about. So let's go ahead and go over, I guess, the chapter titles.
Sure. Hold on just a minute. It's hard to remember, so I'm going to grab my phone. All right. So the chapter titles, we'll start with Where to Start. That, of course, is the first one.
What do you mean? Let's go into a little bit
Each
of
one?
detail.
Okay. So yeah, with Where to Start, it's basically like from the minute the bride gets engaged, you know, your world is kind of like, okay, what do I do first? And that's why I really wanted to elaborate on that and just make it so that it was, you know, self-explanatory. You can ask your friends and stuff, but also start doing your research, you know, get a notebook that you can start writing your notes in, because it's really important to stay organized and stuff. So I kind of give a brief intro into that, and then just kind of starting the whole process of wedding planning, because everyone is planning their wedding as soon as they get engaged. That's kind of a normal thing. Your mind goes to, okay, what vision do I have? What do I want to wear? Like, there's so many questions.
Definitely. There's a lot that pretty much goes into it from the start.
Yeah. And you have to consider a lot of different things. So I definitely break it down into like also, you know, getting your family's input too, just in case there are any family expectations of like, you know, your family members want to have a big grand party, but maybe you don't.
Yeah, because that even gets into like the whole idea of like what we deliver as the photographer and the videographer. Sometimes the couple doesn't really want this long video. They just kind of want to highlight. But then the parents get mad because they're like, what do you mean we're not getting the long video? That's like what we send back home and stuff like that. So just it's good to make sure that you talk to your family and
communicate.
Yeah, really just understand, especially if they're the ones paying, because they're going to be the ones that get really angry.
Yeah, and you may not want it, like you said. Like people our age and stuff are kind of like, you know, I'll be good with like a 10 to 15 minute video. I don't want to sit and watch a 90-minute video. Whereas again, the family members want to sit, they want to watch, they want to make it like a movie night. And I totally understand that, but just you want to communicate. That's the biggest thing. Just from the beginning, you know, ask them if they want anything in particular. And that way, when you are talking to your photography and cinematography crews, you can kind of get a sense of like what they are going to give you and go back and forth to find something that works.
Cool. So we'll touch more on that when we get to some later sections that we're going to talk about today. What's chapter 2?
Chapter 2 is vendor selection.
Cool.
That's a great one.
Yeah. We'll talk a little about vendors and.
Yeah, we're going to get really kind of more in depth on that. Yeah. Chapter 3 is going to be why use professionals. And this kind of goes more into like, you know, instead of hiring someone that's maybe more amateur, you do want to do your research and find someone that is more, you know, like used to your type of weddings and is familiar with it. Because at the end of it, you don't want to be babysitting any vendor. That's kind of one thing I always see sometimes when people want to hire other vendors that aren't as experienced, then you kind of lose that vision because you're having to babysit. Chapter 4, we go into more in-depth in vendors. That is kind of a common theme in this book. But what I do is I break it down into separate sections. So we have everything. There's kind of like sub-chapters. So we start with wedding planners, day of coordinators. That's kind of the biggest thing you want to make sure you get. And then from there, we kind of break it down into the other main categories. So DJ, decoration, photographer, cinematographer, hair and makeup. Those are kind of your core group of vendors that you want to make sure you do your research and you kind of figure out who's who and what they're offering.
Almost like level of importance.
Almost, yeah.
So I think that's something, we'll touch on that a little bit too about like budgeting and where to spend your money.
Like I didn't want to go too much in depth into like catering and that kind of stuff because it's like that's going to be taken care of.
It's a personal choice.
Yeah, and you're not really doing as much research into that because, like, you have to do taste testing and that kind of stuff. So I
Yeah.
didn't want to focus on
Yeah.
that.
Makes sense.
Chapter 5, we go into tips for the big day. And that's what I really like. I give all the tips, everything I've learned over the years and what I've seen. And again, we'll dive into that.
Yeah, I definitely think you should give a couple tips today.
And with that, there's also subcategories in it. And we'll go through things to do before the big day. That's going to be like things you need to get ready just in case, things you need to make sure you have with you before, and just some helpful ideas in that sense. Otherwise, then the next subchapter is health, body, and mind tips.
Okay.
Because that's something like not really anyone talks about. And like for some reason, this always happens where you've seen this all the time that our couples are tired.
Because they stay up all night with family and don't drink their water. And
they don't stay
like
hydrated.
That, yeah.
They're not eating. And that has an effect. Like you honestly can get hangry. And then how are your pictures going to turn out when you're mad? Other than that, we will go into things to remember day of. So this is kind of goes into like the day of the wedding. What do you need to remember? So I really elaborate on that. And then the last chapter is mindset training. And I wanted to keep this the last chapter because I wanted to kind of emphasize and just bring it all together and put it in that perspective of, okay, these are the things you really need to remember come your wedding day.
Yeah, so if you want to leave them with that, because if they don't remember anything else in the book, hopefully they'll at least remember the mindset training. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, no one really goes over that at all. Like, I don't even think wedding planners and stuff go over that so much because they're more focused on the event, and everything's always about the event and nothing's ever about the couple and just like everything like that. So I really wanted to emphasize that.
Gotcha. So we did bring the book cover today.
Which he designed.
Yeah. So for those who haven't seen the book cover, this is what it's going to look like. To dive into that real quickly, we just wanted it to be pretty simple and straight to the point. And as you can tell, that's what it is. We didn't want a bunch of big elaborate pictures and stuff like that because that would distract from, the real reason that we wrote the book, How to Be a Bride.
Yeah, we wanted to
actually,
make it
she wrote the book, so I didn't write it.
Self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Like you could read the cover and know, okay, that's what it is.
Yeah, so that's the book cover. If you see that on Amazon, go ahead and grab it.
And we're offering it at a great price.
Yeah, $9.99. So.
$9.99, which is a steal for $10
That's 12 years of experience for $10. So
yeah,
listen to the things that she's talking about because there's definitely some pointers.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of insight and just it'll help you get through the whole process.
So we went over the chapter titles and stuff like that. Let's go ahead and go into like one of the first ones because you touched on vendors a lot. Just kind of explain the vendors and kind of like budgeting and stuff like that.
So when you start wedding planning, it's kind of like you want to start looking at the options in your area and of course like get feedback from your family members, your friends who have used different vendors. And I explain them in the book. I kind of elaborate on this. Get their opinion of how it was working with certain vendors, because then you'll know who to kind of stay away from and who to actually reach out to. And that'll kind of be your start, which is a great starting point because having that word of mouth is like key in knowing that like, okay, they gave, them a great experience. So I'm kind of expecting a similar one. And then from there, you just kind of want to start reaching out to people and even doing research online. So like great places are Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, even to get some ideas of like the style you like and also doing some research on the location. And I call it location-based hashtags. So like if you're looking for Atlanta DJs is a great hashtag, or Atlanta makeup artists. And that way you can kind of figure out like, okay, these people are, in my location and, I'll reach out to them and figure out what the pricing is, what the structure is, and kind of go from there.
Gotcha. And as far as like budgeting, do you really dive into like how much you should pay for vendors, or is it more just like,
It's kind of like I don't want to give out people's pricing because
gotcha,
that's
it's a sensitive
it
subject?
is, and everyone charges what their rate is. So I have no way of, determining, okay, this needs to be this much, because it also depends on how big of a crew they need to pull it off. Like there's so many individual details that each vendor really needs to know before giving you a quote. And that's why it's important when you're filling out those inquiry forms, be as specific as you can and just really, tell the truth about things. Don't say it's like going to be 100 people and then, oh, it's going to be 500 people.
Go into a little detail about how that can actually affect, like, why someone would want to charge more or less.
So obviously you need a bigger crew. And if you're having a bigger crew, you need to pay out more.
That goes with everybody, because if you got a bigger decor, you're going to need more people to set up
Exactly.
the venue. And then if you have more people to cover as far as photo and video, you're going to need more people that can
Help
get
on
those
set.
extra shots. If you've got more speakers or more lighting for the DJ, they're going to have more people kind of helping set up all that stuff.
And honestly, it's a lot more work.
It
So
is.
that's why it's important to be clear up front and just explain like, okay, I am having a huge wedding and I need to know what you would charge. And that way your vendor knows and comes prepared. They'll know what they need to bring, who they need to bring, how many people. And, everyone will be prepared. So no one's like, there's no surprises in that sense. So I really say just communicate from the beginning, let them know, even communicate your budget. That's something that a lot of people don't really say up front because they just kind of want to shop around and get pricing. But if you just tell your potential vendor, hey, I've allotted, 10,000 for something like this, then they'll know what amount you can afford and maybe customize a package for you.
Right. And it also it helps save a lot of time.
Oh, yeah.
So
especially if you're knowing up front, because even you see this all the time when I get inquiries and they're just like, how much do you charge for travel? And I'm like, okay, I need to know a lot more
right,
than that.
because it's like, are we traveling to the other side of the world? Are we going 200
And obviously,
miles?
there's extra costs involved. And that's the thing. Say you are looking in your area for vendors, but you're not having any luck. I noticed this with like states that don't really have a big community that shoots Indian weddings or Pakistani weddings and stuff, that they like often have to outsource from different states. Like you remember how we went to Arkansas? I remember her explaining to me that like she couldn't find anyone out there.
Right. And then we're going back to Kentucky to shoot one later this year.
Yeah, in November.
Yeah.
So like,
because it's the same thing. It's not typical that,
and you want to hire someone
people
that's
have
experienced.
that education and experience shooting those types.
Obviously. So with that, you just kind of want to open your search. If you want to, you can open it wide enough to where you are having people fly in or drive in or anything like that. But also consider there's going to be extra costs because obviously, that being on the road costs money. Like
Yeah. So hotel accommodations,
expenses,
especially with crews. If you got multiple people, you got to get a couple rooms because we're not going to just all sleep together.
I mean, you need to be comfortable. We have to bring a lot of gear. That's something I think a lot of people don't realize because they think like, oh, you have your cameras.
Just bring
and
your
stuff.
camera. Come on.
But if y'all could see our van and stuff when we're packing up for a wedding, it's just like it's crazy packed.
Yeah, because we bring lighting, tripods.
There's so much that goes
the whole
involved
setup.
with it.
Yeah.
And then if you imagine like someone with decor and stuff, they have to bring everything.
Yeah,
That's
they
a
have
whole nother
huge
level.
trucks, like the box trucks full of stuff. Yeah, definitely. So as far as like vendors and working with pros, I know we've talked about that a few times, even on your live. You kind of mentioned why you need to work with pros.
Want to elaborate?
Yeah, let's go into that a little bit.
So professional people, I think, who have been in the industry or seasoned in it, they know what to do in any given situation. So like if anything comes up, they know how to work on the spot. They can get things done. Whereas someone that's more new might not know what to do in that situation or might not even be prepared. So that's kind of meaning like if something comes up, they just kind of might freak out or just.
We've seen that.
We've definitely
definite
seen
planners.
Oh yeah. We've had one instance where a planner didn't just kind of melt down and was like, they're just not listening to me. And had to tell her, like, look, this is what they do. They're not thinking about, oh, things need to be on time or things need to be a certain way. They're just trying to have fun
Yeah, you have to have planners and vendors that really know how to work
together
on the fly, even because if something goes wrong, like they might have their one way of doing things, but at the end of the day,
actually one time when we had a entrance and it was just like one of those grand entrances and it started way from the back, but somehow in the middle, like they didn't want to walk down the aisle. You remember that?
Which one?
It was a couple of months ago.
Without saying names.
But like they just kind of stopped and froze and didn't really know what to do. And then like I had to go to them and be like, no, you can't make your entrance just like from the side and try to come in. We have to have an actual entrance. So I had to get the planner involved and make sure they, seated everyone, which I mean, there's so many different elements to a wedding, but like having people that can kind of get everyone in place and just make everything go along so flawlessly is just, it's your saving grace at the end of the day.
Yeah. Makes sense. So I think that's all that we're going to probably go over today in the book.
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much because we'll
do a couple more and kind of go into more details of other aspects of the book. But I think we should go ahead and do a couple tips.
Definitely.
Let's just do 3 tips today.
Okay. I like that.
Maybe a tip that could help you get a better experience, maybe better photos or videos, just some type of tips. What kind of tips would you recommend?
I would say I think most people forget about including family members during really special parts, or the family members just don't get ready early enough, so they miss out on the opportunity of like actually helping the daughter or the son get ready. And you've seen this so many times where we show up and like we're like, okay, where's your family? And the groom's like, they're not coming till like 2 or 3 hours later.
Yeah. It's sad.
It's sad because those are your memories. Those are really like great moments to get with your family members. I mean, it's literally like 2 people from 2 different households coming together, and for your family, it's such a big moment.
Yeah, because in the moment, you probably don't really worry about it.
Mm-mm.
But if you think about like from their perspective, this is our kid
getting
married and like this is a big moment.
Big
so
deal.
It's like even they forget.
They do too, and actually they're so preoccupied.
Yeah, and dealing with other things, it's a lot going on.
And you've seen me. You don't like how many times have I had to like hunt down the mom or the dad and be like, come here for a photo, because like they're
socializing and
they want to enjoy
like
the
too.
event, which is totally fine. But make sure you have them ready before you're ready. That's kind of the biggest thing I do like to stress. Plan it so that, they're ready. They're not like wearing PJs and stuff and trying to help you get ready, that they're fully dressed so that those shots can be timeless and like everyone's looking nice and proper and stuff. So that's something I'd highly advise. Include your family members also for the reason that, no one ever knows when people are going to pass away. And we've seen this time and time again where people reach out to us and they're like, thank you so much for getting those shots, because those were the last real moments I had with my mom or my dad. And it means so much at that point.
And even ask for like extended footage and stuff like that.
To just see them again.
Which we usually don't mind.
Yeah.
Go ahead and go back and get that for them.
But that's also why you want to include them in those moments.
Yeah, you definitely need to have your parents around.
Yes, not even just your parents, even siblings, or say like you might not be that close to your family, then maybe really close friends or people who have been like your core people that you want to be around.
Yeah. Okay.
So it doesn't necessarily always have to be family, but it does help, I think.
Okay, as far as, let's go into another tip on, I'm going to give you a tip to talk about
Okay.
here. So as far as having the family, being ready and all that good stuff, what else should be proper and
I know what
ready
this one is.
whenever you're going to get ready and stuff in your hotel rooms and different things like that?
I would say the thing we see the most are dirty rooms, or just stuff is everywhere. There's makeup everywhere, and it's so chaotic. And at that point, you got to realize these are like professional photographers and video people coming in, and we just kind of have to make everything look good. But then if it's kind of in a crunch time of you only have 30, 40 minutes, if we're sitting there trying to clean things up and if we're sitting there trying to rearrange furniture to make it look right, that's wasting time on us actually taking pictures.
So how can you avoid it?
I would say like designate a person, if not call in room service if it is in a hotel. If you are getting ready in a hotel room, that's kind of like your saving grace. But if not, have a family member, have a friend. If you have a maid of honor or a best man, just be like, look, I need you to do this before the photo and video people come. Because at the end of it, if it's clean, obviously it attracts a better vibe. Your pictures and your video turn out much better just because everything's looking nice and proper and you're not seeing like a ton of stuff. And
in the best case scenario, if they can afford it, go ahead and get that extra room
for themselves. Yeah. I would highly recommend that because there's been so many times we walked in and there's probably about like 10 or 15 girls in there and cousins and aunties and uncles running in and out, and you don't want to be around all of that.
Yeah, because it's a lot of energy in one room too.
And everyone's stressing out.
And they're all on their own schedules, so they don't care about what you have going on. They're worried about getting ready themselves and all that kind of stuff. So,
or even being like if they're in your shots and stuff, and we've
in the
background and stuff, and it's just like, oh, this would have been such a great moment.
But
if
your aunt was yawning in the back, scratching her armpits. Like, yeah.
Yeah. I would say just book your own room, have that peace of mind. And also that way you can kind of really take the time to process everything and just focus on why you're there. Because if you're not having all these like external forces of like, oh, this is going on and that's going on, like, you'll be in a much better state of mind. And also, if you do want to include people, have your friends and family come, but just make sure they're ready so they can help you in those moments, the final moments of getting ready or putting your shoes on or jewelry and that kind of stuff. You want to have that.
I know this wasn't something that we had originally planned to talk about, but how can like cell phones affect a wedding while you're getting ready? Let's not even talk about the event, just mainly like when your friends have their phones and stuff like that. How can that?
I mean, it's kind of inevitable at some points. Like you said, during the event, everyone's got their phones. But at least during getting ready, they should fully be present. They shouldn't be having to worry about like taking pictures of you with their phone or anything. Because at the end of the day, those pictures are just going to be on the phone. They're not like going to be the timeless ones that you can look back on or you can put in a photo album or print and make large and stuff. Like these are kind of works of art that we're doing. So
or even just being distracted. Because
really
like we'll be trying to get photos and people will be texting on the phones and stuff like that.
Just completely block us out.
It's definitely something to think about if you don't want your wedding kind of, I wouldn't say ruined, but if you don't want your wedding ruined by cell phones, try to keep that to a minimal, even talking to your friends about that.
Yeah, just kind of giving them like a disclaimer, like, hey, I know I want you to be there, but like don't worry about having your phone out. And I know a lot of American weddings do this where it's called unplugged weddings.
I don't think that would ever happen in ours.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But it is something like at least you could talk about to your friends and family and just be like, hey, you don't need to be holding a phone. Like how many times do we have like the father of the bride or the groom literally with the phone the entire time? And I always have to be like, you have to put it down because it's literally blocking your face.
Yeah. I'm sure you could pull up tons of photos of where you just have phones.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a whole thing in itself. But again, like I said, it's technology. It's how we live now. Like, I don't know why it is instinct to want to pull out your phone and get the shots. It's maybe because you want to be able to save that memory for yourself. But at the end of it, it's just going to be on your phone. Maybe you'll post it. Maybe you won't.
Yeah.
And it's not worth ruining the pictures, I think.
So,
and video.
For the last tip, let's go ahead and talk about, it kind of goes with the last tip that we did say, number 2.
Yeah.
As far as like having your own room and your own space, you can kind of be more intimate with either the bride or the groom. And do some personal things. Like we always recommend writing a letter or
Vows.
just kind of vows or something that they can give to their significant other. So
Yeah, I think
why is that important?
It's key in making your wedding personal and bringing it back to the reason of like why you're there and why you guys were attracted to each other and started this marriage together. So I always recommend it because I love getting the reactions, and I love, those moments of like, those are the last kind of moments that they are like not officially married. So I feel like there's something powerful about that, in a sense where like they can really feel all those emotions, and sometimes you'll get the tears, or like people will get emotional, but it just brings it back home. And I think that's what's key, is because these events are so big and you have to worry about, okay, I have to cut a cake and I have to do a dance and I have to do this and I have to do that and an exit. And you can get lost in all of that madness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to kind of,
and a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people are either like shy or just think they're, it's not worth doing that kind of stuff. But the thing that they don't really think about is, like 20 years down the road or 30 years later, like when they can listen to the young voice right before their marriage and stuff like that. That's where it's like a little bit more impactful.
And I think all the time we do try to get our couples to be more involved and give that audio or speak to the camera and stuff. And a lot of times they're just like, oh, no, it's okay. Don't worry about it.
I didn't write it. No,
yeah.
And
at the end of it's such a great memory.
Yeah, and it doesn't take a whole lot of effort.
No.
It's worth it at the end of the day,
It is. And I think the couples that do it, they are super thankful that we gave that idea, that we explained that it is a very special time, and like they really use that information. They're thankful for it. So it's up to you if you want to do a letter. If a letter is too much or anything like that, you can always, what else could you do?
I don't know. Letters. We've done the vows.
Another thing, you could just talk to the camera. Like we've had done like little interviews where it's kind of been on the spot, and we've just asked, okay, how do you feel right now? And they just blurted out everything. And that's kind of like, again, bringing back to that memory. And then, 40, 50 years from now, when your kids are watching it, like for me, when I was growing up, I loved, if I could find anything of my parents' wedding, I was just like in love with it because it showed me a different time of them. And even seeing their old photos together when they were early married, like I love that because I know my parents as my parents, how they are now and that kind of stuff. But to see them in that time is it's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's pretty good for this podcast here. We went over, some of the contents, and like I said, we'll get into more of that on the next one. We're going to try to do these pretty often. But as far as, do you have any last words for this one? Any other recommendations or tips? Or
I think I'm going to leave the rest of the tips for the book because I don't want to give everything out, but I hope I was able to kind of give some insight and give some background information about it. I would say if you guys enjoyed this podcast and if you want to stay tuned for more, please like and subscribe to my channel, and that way we can start giving out more podcasts. And then if you want to be a part of our launch team for the book, you can visit the link below. And from there, I think it's been a good episode. I hope I was able to give some insight and really just kind of tell you about the book to where you would want to get it, hopefully, or share with a friend or anything like that. I'm definitely looking forward to everyone actually seeing the book and, where it goes from there.
Cool.
Thanks, guys, for staying tuned, and we'll see you next time.